is.
You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. What's going on, folks? Welcome to Dangerous Liberty Podcast, where we talk guns, gear, training, politics. We have special guests on. And looks like we got some new folks here I want to welcome. And all our regulars. Dan, good to see you, buddy. Jason, sponsor, Daryl Kramer. Let's see. Mike Gibson. Throw up Jordan up there. Jordan Titus. Click that block there.
There you go.
Jordan, just found this channel 2 weeks ago and been geeking out. Great channel. Guys, keep it up. Thanks, Jordan. We're glad to have you. So welcome to the channel, and thanks for showing up to the podcast. Let's see.
Jamal said, when did the set change? I guess you weren't here last week,
Jamal. You weren't here, Jamal.
Oh, it changed again, though, too.
Well, yeah.
We did kind of change it up.
We deleted a table.
So,
now you can see my gut.
Dan was nice enough to
sit here like this all night.
Dan was nice enough to give us some feedback last week, saying we were basically too far away. So we tried to scoot everything up. We got rid of the table. Got some new mic stands, which are garbage, by the way. These things are like,
yeah.
These things are just
They're
barely holding up these mics. I literally got shooting bags down there. I got some wee bad fortune cookies. And anyways,
well, that's making me hungry.
That's why you got to hold your paper up all night.
So I'm just going to be sucking it in. So if I sound out of breath, so I'm holding it
in. We have welcome Mike in. Good to see you, buddy. Jeff Hahn, Jamal, Chris Bishop. Who else we got here? Willie Everett. Awesome. Anyways, and if you were just showing up, and of course we got our Lost Boys over on Rumble.
I haven't seen anybody yet on there.
That's all right. They'll come up.
Oh, there. Wait. Otter's on there already.
Well, it's pretty slow. So what's not strangely enough, but interesting enough, folks, we are getting a ton of views, especially on the Dangerous Liberty shows over on Rumble. We're getting as many or more on Rumble than we are on YouTube after, we posted the subsequent views afterwards. So anyways, I appreciate you guys that are making an effort to go over to Rumble. Again, YouTube is not our friend. The more people that we get over to Rumble, the better off that we are, faster that we can get away from YouTube and their incessant, nonsensical censorship.
Sorry, I'm just giggling because I think about all the times Gary will post a video and then I'll hear him go, no, or like get all, throw something across the room. And he's like,
it's usually
demonetize my video.
Yeah. Well, and again, folks, I can even show you, I mean, after all the videos and we're getting over 100,000 views a month, we make a measly like between $600 and $800. So it is not about the money.
I think we can afford new mic stands.
We need to start a GoFundMe for mic stands.
Next week, Chris's mic stand. Chris's mic and mic stand is going to be a broom handle.
I'm fine with it as long as I can bump it and not be scared.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's not about the money. And, if you guys know anything about YouTube and the algorithm, ultimately what it is as soon as they demonetize that thing, they kill it in the feed. So you're just not getting the reach. And that's what's frustrating to me. We put a lot of time and work, on average, I bet on average, we're putting 10 to 12 hours of work between shooting and mainly editing. So, it's a lot of work.
Probably more with that, even with planning,
research and, never mind the amount of monetary investment we have between, cameras and all the gear that we got. So anyways, I'll quit bitching.
The nice mic stands.
The nice mic stands.
Hey, we do have nice chairs though.
We do have nice chairs. You're not going next week. Your chair is going to be a stool.
Oh, well.
Let's see. We got a lot to cover tonight. Good to see events. Just looking at comments real quick. All right. So anyways, and any significant comments or any comments that need attention, Tyler, go ahead and throw that up. So first of all, I want to address the elephant that's not in the room, and that is Jason's not here tonight. Obviously, you probably won't hear as many sound effects. But all joking aside, we miss Jason. He's a welcome, weird part of the show that we love. Tyler is back here working on stuff. We've been training him up to do a lot of our social media. And anyways, you guys will probably see more of him and definitely see his work in the coming days between doing shorts, helping me with doing videos, all that good stuff. Summer, how was your week?
Fast.
Fast.
I feel like we just were on here.
Man, it has been a whirlwind, folks.
Yeah.
I was just up today at our storefront location, talking with contractors, getting all that stuff built out. So we're working through that. We're going to have next week, we're going to start putting in flooring. Right now, they're covering up 4 windows so that we have one side where we can put guns and gear and all that good stuff. And so we got flooring going in next week. We're painting next week before we put in flooring. So we're moving ahead. We should have that. I'm hoping to have that open for business early part of June, no later than mid-June. And then, of course, July 1st, we're looking at doing a grand opening. And I'm going to talk to Summit Point. We'll see what we can do as far as additional activities out there. I don't know, maybe we can at least get out there on the range or something like that and let off some fireworks or something like that. But that's yet to be cleared. And I don't want to make any promises that, I don't know, don't pass OSHA or end up with some sort of, actually, that sounds very lawsuit.
Just shut up.
I would be quiet.
We'll release further details.
We'll release for
TBD.
There'll be at least some pizza or something. Maybe someone will make some barbecue.
Oh my God! Now we're obligating me to make barbecue and paint and lay flooring and ship out orders.
You don't have to do it all in one day.
And wash the dishes.
And wash the dishes.
You don't have to do it all in one day.
Yeah.
All right.
can
So
split it up.
one of the segments that we like to hit is Gun Save Lives again. Chris has got.
I got a weird one today.
Yeah, you got some. Send it.
It's not really a gun save good guys. So I found this article, I think it was in Washington Times, and it's talking about how the FBI's numbers are so skewed from the actual numbers of good guys killing bad guys with guns.
Surprise.
Right. It's crazy numbers. So the FBI rating for active shooting incidents ended by good guys with guns is 4.4% over the past 10 years.
Okay.
This independent guy, Mr. Lott, who has done an exuberant amount of research, and he used to work for the Justice Department as a senior advisor, said that number is more like 34.4%. So literally a 30% swing compared to what the FBI is
So
saying.
you're saying 30% of active shooter incidents are ended or stopped. The threat is stopped by a good guy with a gun.
34.4, almost
Yeah.
35. Yeah.
Well,
compared
And
to
the FBI
FBI's.
is saying less than 5%.
Yeah.
Well, and the other part of that, or the challenge with that too, is there's no way to, indicate how many have actually been stopped by that, right?
Correct.
That's a difficult number. But anyways, continue.
But he said, he went on to say the numbers are so distorted by shoddy work and the judgment calls that they're just worthless, they're misleading. He said specifically it's garbage what he was interviewing with the Washington Times, and the FBI should be embarrassed. The FBI's active shooter definition is different than all shootings or even mass shooting. FBI says it covers instances in which someone with a firearm is actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. The point is to zero in these instances that there is.
Wait. So that's a mass. Is that we're talking about mass shooting?
Mass. That's the only time that they're saying this is when we're going to take into account that somebody did stop this.
But their definition of a mass shooting is any active shooter that is in a populated area.
Correct. Engaged in killing or attempting to kill people.
So when we hear the numbers, there's been over 200 mass shootings this year alone. This is kind of where we're going with.
Correct.
Could be just one guy in a metropolitan area that is
populated.
Maybe trying to kill
or just has a gun and is holding a person up or something like that. Who knows how they distort that info?
And the FBI's main resource on figuring out these numbers is they use news accounts.
That makes sense.
So I thought that was just
Because the news is always factual.
I mean that's
and along those lines, I just read an article. I believe it was by either Gun Owners of America or Firearm Policy. Anyways, one of those just published something disputing that. We've been hearing the figure that guns are now the number one killer of children. Number one, I've never believed that stat. I think that is impossibly wrong. It's impossible to even and be the case. But anyways, supposedly they break that down. I haven't read that article yet, haven't gone through there, but I think that's definitely worth checking out. So anyways.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that skewed.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's the government.
It is the government. And we're going to get into
Government.
just how corrupt the FBI actually is tonight.
No way.
And folks, you know, I was getting ready, and we're talking about, I wanted to go through this Durham report, and my intention was to kind of summarize this as much as possible. And you know, I was talking to someone about it earlier today, and she was like, well, you know, just go online and, you know, somebody's done a synopsis on this. So I started looking, and not only has that not been done, about 80% of the news stories, and I know you guys are surprised, are basically severely downplaying, like, this is a big nothing burger. Folks, this is anything but a big nothing burger. This is one of the biggest stories in American history when you start seeing exactly how this evidence was presented, how this investigation got started, what they knew, when did they know it, and then what they did with that information. It is,
and how much it cost.
And I don't even care about the price.
I do.
Because the real price is the fact that we have a president that basically was in the middle of a bureaucratic coup. That's what really took place. We had a president that, without a doubt, without that initial investigation going into the collusion with Russia, supposedly alleged and completely come to find out was absolutely false, they probably would not have had the momentum to have the carry on and the follow on investigations and or impeachments. So we would have never seen what we saw. Basically, what we did is in the first quarter of this president's, the first few months of this president's presidency, his administration, we had a large population of the American citizenry that was convinced that this guy was, you know, basically an agent of Russia, and that has continued to stick. And by the way, the crazy thing about this is there's so many things that were proven absolutely false that I still, even reading through Twitter, reading through social media, like, oh, yeah. Well, they proved that wasn't correct, but this is correct, and this is a fact. And those are some of the facts that are actually laid out in what we're going to go through tonight. And I'll be honest with you, we're going to do a lot of reading. And this will not be the most, you know, funny, exciting podcast we ever did. But I think that whatever pain that we put you through on this, I think it's worth it. And again, I've posted the actual document that I have went through. If you guys already downloaded that, if you didn't, I definitely recommend that you download it and go through it. I have some of the areas highlighted and tried to summarize as much as possible. But every time I was like, oh, I'm just going to skip this whole area. There's so much important information all throughout this report that it's really actually kind of hard to skip through.
How many pages is the report?
It's over 300 pages.
300, yeah.
Here's the
And
other
we're going
thing
to cover
that
800 tonight.
I've thought of several times, and I'm sure I'm not the only one to think this, is I'm sure that they thought worst case scenario with some of the stuff that they were doing to Trump is that they couldn't get an impeachment to stick, or if they couldn't get any real charges to stick or anything to actually happen, worst case scenario, they knew that they could keep him so busy defending himself or trying to fight off some of this stuff that he would be ineffective as a president.
Well, I like to, you know, as we get through this tonight, you guys can kind of judge for yourself, but it's very clear what the FBI was going. There was a very small contingent, mainly the leadership of the FBI, that number one, they knew that this information was bogus. They knew that it hadn't been vetted, and yet they pursued it anyways. And even when they were trying to vet this information through other intelligence agencies, specifically the Brits, they were like, this is a joke. They were laughing at him, literally. And anyways, we'll get into some of that stuff. But as we go along, again, I'll try to stop every now and then because it's going to get a little lengthy. But we'll stop every now and then. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. And next week, we're probably going to hit this topic again. We might wait another week before we dive into it. But folks, I think there is nobody that is covering this, and that is what's mind-boggling to me. And even the couple of news sources that have covered this bits and pieces, like when you get into the details of this, the level of corruption that was taking place during this time, it's mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling. It undermines everything that the FBI is or does. Anything they put out going forward, knowing what I know now, there is no way that I could accept that on the face of it. They need an outside investigation. They need somebody in there that is objective, that can get in there and actually vet their intelligence and vet the any sort of evidence they have that they're trying to charge anybody. They have lost all credibility in my mind. And I think as we go through this, I'm sure many of you feel that way to some extent now, and I did before reading this, but the blatant corruption that took place during this, I mean, there's just no excuse for it. So anyways, we will dive into this a little bit. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Again, I'll keep an eye on the comments, and so will Tyler back there. He can yell at me if something poignant comes up. But go ahead and throw my screen up, Tyler. All right, so we're basically right here at the beginning. We're going through the executive summary. I'm going to skip as much as I can. We're going to go down here where all this starts.
Can't imagine typing,
Oh, I mean,
organizing.
Months and months and months and months.
And
all right, so when we the first point that we're going to get to is basically John Durham lays out, what the purpose of this report was and what the questions that they were asking was when they got into it. So our review of this investigation in turn has focused on separate but related questions, including the following. Was there adequate predication for the FBI to open Crossfire hurricane investigation from its inception in July 31st, 2016 as a full counterintelligence and foreign agents? Registration Act investigation, given the requirements, the Attorney General's guidelines for FBI domestic operations and FBI policies relating to the use of the least intrusive investigative tools necessary. Was the opening of Crossfire Hurricane as a full investigation on July 31st, 2016, consistent with how the FBI handled other intelligence investigations prior, including the Clintons? And specifically, they're really going to talk about, they compare and contrast the Clintons, this investigation with not only the Clinton investigation going into her actually providing this intelligence or this information that came directly from Russia, by the way, and as well as other investigations that were attempted by FBI agents, but were shut down by the FBI once they found out they were trying to investigate Hillary. What were you going to say, Chris?
Just so everybody that hasn't read this or is not up on top of it, is the Crossfire Hurricane the code name for the investigation?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm just making sure because you just started ramming right through it, so I just want to make sure everybody knows it.
Yeah, so Crossfire Hurricane is the investigation into Trump with his supposed collusion with Russia. So it was a counterintelligence investigation. All right, so
it's a cool name for it.
It is. It's super cool.
Crossfire Hurricane.
It's the name of treason. I mean, I don't know what to say. Similarly, did the FBI properly consider other significant intelligence it received at virtually at the same time as that used to predicate Crossfire Hurricane, which related not to the Trump campaign, but rather to purported Clinton campaign plan to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services, which might have shed light on some of the Russia information the FBI was receiving from third parties, including the Steele dossier, the Alpha Bank allegations, and confidential human resources, CHS. We'll see that all throughout this document. If not, were any provable federal crimes committed in failing to do so?
So basically it's asking if they ignored other intelligence.
And they absolutely and intentionally did.
Okay.
And we'll get heavy into that.
Okay.
Was there evidence that the actions of any FBI personnel or third parties relating to Crossfire Hurricane investigation violated any federal criminal statutes, including the prohibition against making false statements to federal officials? If so, was the evidence sufficient to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? Was there evidence that the actions of the FBI or department personnel providing false or incomplete information to the Foreign Intelligence Services Court, FISC, or later on we'll talk about FISA, violated any federal criminal statutes? If so, was there evidence sufficient to prove guilt? Our findings and conclusions regarding these and related questions are sobering. So we'll jump down here. No verified intelligence reflecting that Trump or the Trump campaign was involved in a conspiracy or collaborative relationship with officials of the Russian government.
I just want to say this should be like breaking news headlines.
Oh,
that
100%.
one sentence should be no evidence of collusion.
And it's more than that, folks. And that's the thing. That's, again,
This is scratching the surface.
I know, but I'm just
there's no
saying,
real
like,
revelation in this part so far that we've covered, right? What gets crazy is that they were presented with exculpatory evidence time and time again, or evidence that clearly undermined the validity of the intelligence they were using to start this investigation to begin with. And they ignored it. Not only did they ignore it, they broke every protocol in the book. And he talks about this. Look, they broke every protocol when it comes to vetting information and sources. They completely ignored every other norm and protocol that they've ever used ever. As set forth in greater detail, upon receipt of unevaluated intelligence information from Australia, the FBI swiftly opened the Crossfire hurricane investigation. In particular, at the direction of Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, Deputy Assistant Director Counterintelligence Peter Stroke, opened the Crossfire hurricane immediately. And folks, when you guys hear what evidence they used to initiate this investigation, a counterintelligence investigation on not only American citizens, but a president, or at the time, a candidate for president. And then, well, we'll get into it. Stroke, at a minimum, had pronounced hostile feelings toward Trump. The matter was opened as a full investigation without ever having spoken to the persons who provided the information. Further, the FBI did so without any significant review of its own intelligence databases, collection and examination of any relevant intelligence from U.S. intelligence entities, interviews of witnesses essential to understand the raw information it had received, using any of the standard analytical tools typically employed by the FBI in evaluating raw intelligence. Had it done so, again, as set out in Section 4, whatever, would have learned that their own experienced Russia analysts had no information about Trump being involved with Russian leadership officials, nor were others in sensitive positions at the CIA, NSA, and the Department of State aware of such evidence concerning the subject. In addition, FBI records prepared by Stroke in February and March 2017 show that at the time of the opening of Crossfire hurricane, the FBI had no information in its holding indicating that any time during the campaign, anyone in the Trump campaign had been in contact with any Russian intelligence officials. We're going to skip through this. So we have Stroke and Deputy Director McCabe. Stroke and Deputy Director McCabe's special assistant had pronounced hostile feelings toward Trump, as explained later in the report, and text messages before and after opening Crossfire hurricane. The two had referred to him as loathsome, an idiot, someone who should lose to Clinton 1,000,000 to 1, 100,000,000 to 1, and a person who Stroke wrote, "We will stop from becoming president." Indeed, the day before the Australian information was received at FBI headquarters, Page sent a text message to Stroke stating, "Have we opened on him yet?" Angry face emoji, and referenced an article titled "Trump and Putin, Yes, It's Really a Thing." I was also going to talk about possibly illegal financial contribution to the Clinton campaign on behalf of foreign entity, which they had absolute proof of, but they never followed through and even investigated that. And in a third, the Clinton Foundation matter, both senior FBI and department officials placed restrictions on how those matters were to be handled, such that essentially no investigative activities occurred for months leading up to the investigation, up to the election. And by the way, those were subsequently completely crushed. They did no investigation whatsoever.
And yet he still beat her.
Still beat her. These examples are also markedly different from the FBI's action with respect to other highly significant intelligence it received from trusted foreign source, pointing to Clinton campaign plan to vilify Trump by tying him to Vladimir Putin so as to divert attention from her own concerns relating to her use of a private email server. Unlike the FBI's opening of a full investigation of unknown members, the Trump campaign, based on raw, uncorroborated information in this separate matter involving purported Clinton campaign plan, the FBI never opened up any type of inquiry, issued any taskings, employed any analytical personnel, or produced any analytical products in connection with this information. We're going to jump through here. So what I want to do is get down here. All right, so we'll jump down to.
Are you going to get to the actual piece of evidence they used to
Yeah, so
open the investigation?
I do want to hit this, though. The unvetted and unverified Steele reports were used to support probable cause in the FBI's FISA applications targeting Page, a U.S. citizen who, for a period of time, had been an advisor to Trump. As discussed later in the report, this was done at the time when the FBI knew that the same information Steele had provided to the FBI had also been fed to the media and others in Washington, D.C.
A FISA warrant has to be approved by a judge, right?
It does. So it has to be approved by a FISA judge, basically. That's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
I like Jason's comment. What's the point of highlighting if you're just going to highlight the whole thing?
Well,
you right.
In various colors, Jason.
in various colors. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
He skipped a lot.
I thought
Matt
that I
K
was
did say
going
the
to.
teal blue
I
goes great with
thought
your
that I
eyes.
was going to be able to skip a lot more, to be honest with you, and I thought this would be. But the fact of the matter is, as I read through this, there's so many of this nuance that ends up tying all this together that I think is important. That it is what it is.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend. Again, I got the free PDF downloaded of this document, the stuff I highlighted, and everything
With
in
his
between.
multicolor highlights.
In my multicolor highlights, because I got tired of seeing one color, and I knew you would too.
Oh, I thought they meant different things.
I thought they
So-
were like based on
Nope. There's
severity.
some of them are.
They're
Some of
just
them are.
multicolor.
Some of them I just got tired of looking the same color. All right. So here's we're getting to some of the meat and potatoes of this. The unresolved prior FBI counterintelligence investigation of Danchenko. Importantly, and as discussed, the FBI knew in January 2017 that Danchenko had been a subject of an FBI counterintelligence investigation from 2009 to 2011. In late 2008, while Danchenko was employed by the Brookings Institute, he engaged two fellow employees about whether one of the employees might be willing or able in the future to provide classified information in exchange for money. According to one employee, Danchenko believed that he, the employee, might be following a mentor into the incoming Obama administration and have access to classified information. During this exchange, Danchenko informed the employee they had access to people who were willing to pay for classified information. I think later in the beginning of this, or some of the things I skipped over, it talks about Danchenko, the fact that he is basically tied in with the Russian oligarchy. Is it tied in with Russian intelligence agencies? And it was well known.
I couldn't tell by his name. I mean,
first of all, that's racist.
that's not racist. That's definitely
Racist.
What's the word for it?
Racism. That's the word you're right on the tip of your. Right on the
Can't
tip,
think of the damn word.
right on the
Gary.
tip of your bigotry.
Well, his last name's not Smith. Let's just say that. It's Danchenko. He plays hockey.
Is it legal
or-
to pay for classified? Isn't it? Don't
That's
people
literally
get?
that's literally called espionage.
I know, right?
Is it legal?
Is that legal? Legal? Oh yeah.
That's where I was going with this. People get freaking
It's
sent.
conducted professional.
long as his
Gary,
name's
I heard you
Danchenko.
had a TSSCI. There's this guy over here. I don't even know if it's legal,
Yeah.
but if you want to,
Well, that's
give him
where I
some
was going with
information,
this,
kick him a couple
Gary. If you
bucks.
let me finish, people go to jail for this stuff.
Absolutely they do. All right.
Danchenko.
The concerned employee passed this information to the U.S. government contact, and the information was subsequently passed to the FBI. Based on this information in 2009, the FBI opened a preliminary investigation into Danchenko. The FBI converted its investigation into a full investigation after learning that Danchenko had been identified as an associate of two FBI counterintelligence subjects and had previous contact with the Russian embassy and was known Russian intelligence officers. Our review found no indication that Crossfire Hurricane investigators attempted to resolve that prior to Danchenko espionage matter before opening him as a paid confidential human source. I want you guys to take a guess at where most of the Steele dossier information came from.
This guy that wanted to make some money.
This guy that was
This hockey player.
Paid.
he was a spy. He was a well-known spy. And by the way, what we did was
Unreal.
we
We
said,
paid him to be a
we
spy.
said no, we didn't pay him to be a spy. We paid him to provide information ultimately on Donald Trump. So we're paying a Russian agent, which by the way, he gave this information.
So he's
to,
double dipping.
He's a double agent.
Yeah.
that's
He's getting
what I'm
paid by
saying,
Russia
like-
and
Understand. We're like, hey, we heard you are a spy for Russia. Do you need any extra cash?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We essentially paid him to be a spy.
I mean, that right
I mean,
there,
that's
folks.
the deal of the
That
century.
just shows you how unbelievably incompetent and what buffoons that we have in our government that are running the FBI.
real quick,
Yeah,
Jeff,
and they wrote it down.
Jeff Hahn's got a good stat there. Out of the 41,222 FISA warrant requested since 1979, 85 have been denied.
So if you want to, if you, for any Tom, Dick, and Harry reason that you want to spy on our own fellow Americans, it takes little to nothing to do.
Well, that's kind of why I asked. Aren't these approved by a
but
judge?
Guess what?
Like, which judge approved this FISA application?
You know what one of those 85 or a couple of those 85 denials were? For Hillary Clinton.
I'm
and
sure.
we'll talk about that.
Well, Danchenko.
Number one, I do want to say a special thank you to AP for sending us
thank you
$50.
for the support.
Thank you, man. When does the blue... there was one up there that I was starting to read, but then you switched to Tyler. But that's okay.
When does the blue collars rise to correct this problem?
In good time.
That's a good question. The document clearly shows the collusion between the DOJ, the Obama administration. Click on that. There you go. Between the DOJ, the Obama administration, Clinton campaign, and the mainstream media's combined effort to undermine a president. Absolutely. Folks, and that is clear. Number one, later on we'll get into it, but Clinton, Biden, the White House, and the FBI and the CIA were all briefed on the fact that they knew that the beginning of this was a Hillary Clinton campaign effort to vilify Trump.
So it wasn't.
They literally knew this.
It wasn't Russian interference in the 2016 election. It was American.
So if anything, what it was Hillary Clinton colluding with Russians to interfere in the U.S. election, and and she did so successfully. If there was Russian interference, it was between Hillary and Russians.
Steele and Brass had a good point on Danchenko and on Rumble.
What did he say?
He said, "Hey, we know you want to spy on us. Do you want us to let you spy on us while you spy on yourself?
And we'll pay you for it.
Yeah, and some way, I'm sure.
I
wonder why we can't see how much you got paid.
Moreover, our investigation found no indication that Crossfire Hurricane investigators disclosed the existence of Danchenko's unresolved counterintelligence investigation to the department attorneys who were responsible for drafting the FISA renewal applications targeting Carter Page. As a result, the FISC was never advised of information that very well may have affected the view of Steele's primary subsources and Steele's reliability and trustworthiness. Equally important is the fact that in not resolving Danchenko's status vis-a-vis the Russian intelligence services, it appears that FBI never gave appropriate consideration to the possibility that the intelligence Danchenko was providing to Steele, which again, according to Danchenko himself, made up a significant majority of the information in the Steele dossier reports, was in whole or in part Russian disinformation. And folks, you need to let that sink in. Basically what we did was, at a minimum, we allowed Russia to interfere in our, we suddenly created this, or they created this guy that says, hey, we're from Russia and we have intelligence on one of your candidates. And he's, basically they made up it's almost, they were literally, accusing of this guy by using information that they were getting of through the means of which they were accusing this guy. I mean, it is so ridiculous on the face of it. Anyways, during the relevant time period, Danchenko maintained a relationship with Charles Dolan, a Virginia-based public relations professional who had previously held multiple positions and roles in the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party. Dolan previously conducted business with the Russian Federation and maintained relationships with several key Russian government officials, including Dmitry Peskov, the powerful press secretary of the Russian presidential administration. A number of these Russian government officials with whom Dolan maintained a relationship and was in contact with at the time Danchenko was collecting information for Steele, who would later appear in the dossier. In the summer and fall of 2016, at the time Danchenko was collecting information for Steele, Dolan traveled to Moscow. They were at this conference at the Ritz-Carlton, which, according to the Steele reports, was allegedly the site of the salacious sexual conduct on the part of Trump. Danchenko would later inform the FBI that he learned of these allegations through Ritz-Carlton staff members. Going further down, when interviewed by the office, Dolan admitted that he fabricated the allegation about Manafort that appeared in the Steele dossier. Dolan independently received other information strikingly similar to the allegations that would later appear in the Steele reports. Nevertheless, when interviewed by the FBI, Danchenko denied that Dolan was a source of any information in the Steele report. Our investigation revealed that Crossfire Hurricane investigations were aware of Dolan and his connection with Danchenko and the Steele Report. The FBI interviewed hundreds of individuals through the course of Crossfire Hurricane and later investigations, and yet did not interview Dolan as a possible source of information about Trump. Our investigators interviewed Dolan on several occasions, as well as the two other persons mentioned by Steele. Dolan initially denied being a source of information for a Steele report. Stop right there. Throw on the camera, Tyler. One of the things, folks, that you're going to see throughout this is we have people lying to the FBI multiple times, admitting to it, more so than we ever had with any of the folks that were later on tied to the Trump administration that were actually charged with perjury, right? And perjuring themselves. And it's clear in this report, but yet those people were never, they were never charged or anything else. And they were handled completely differently than anybody else in the in the Trump administration. So, and you'll see that time and time again all through this report. But anyways, when, however, he was shown a particular Steele report relating to Paul Manafort and his resignation as Trump's campaign manager, along with related emails before himself and Danchenko on August 2016, he acknowledged that that the reporting mirrored the information that he had provided Danchenko. Dolan acknowledged to the office that he fabricated this information. Although both Steele and Olga Galkina suggested to the FBI that Dolan may have had information related to the Steele reports, our investigation was not able to definitively show that Dolan was the actual source, whether wittingly or unwittingly, for any additional allegations set forth in the Steele reports. Regardless, in light of the foregoing, there does not appear to have any objectively sound reason for the FBI's failure to interview Dolan. Perhaps the most damning allegation in the Steele dossier reports was Company Report 2016-95, which Steele attributed source E, one of Danchenko's supposed subsources. This report, portions of which were included in each of the 4-page FISA applications, contributed to the public narrative of Trump's conspiring, including with Russian officials. Danchenko's alleged source for the information was an individual the name of Sergei Milyan, who was the president of the Russian-American Chamber of Commerce in New York City and a public Trump supporter. The evidence uncovered by the office showed that Danchenko never spoke with Sergei Milyan and simply fabricated the allegations that he attributed to Milyan. Just completely made this up wholesale. Pulled this guy that happened to be an open, Trump supporter. There was a little bit of knowledge of this guy. He created up an entire story that, implicated him and Trump, and the FBI ran with it, and so did the press. And that was one of the big things that was initially released to the press. When interviewed by Crossfire Hurricane investigators in late 2017, Danchenko said that source E sounded as though it was Sergei Milyan. As discussed in section, Danchenko said that he never actually met Milyan, and said he said that in late 2016, he received an anonymous call from a person who did not identify himself, but spoke with a Russian accent. Danchenko further explained that he thought it might have been Milyan, someone Danchenko previously had emailed twice, received no response from. Anyways, it goes on, and there's many different red flags, it says down here, that concerning Danchenko's credibility as well as Steele's. The office, as in the special counsel office, basically Durham's office, also investigated the actions of Perkins Coie attorney Michael Sussman and other connection with Sussman's provision of data and white papers to FBI General Counsel James Baker, purporting to show that existed a covert communication channel between Trump Organization and a Russia bank called Alpha Bank. As set forth in the section, in doing so, he represented to Baker by text message and in person that he was acting on his own, was not representing any client or company, and providing the information to the FBI. Our investigation showed that, in point in fact, these representations to Baker were false, and that Sussman was representing the Clinton campaign, as evidenced by, among many things, his law firm's billing record and internal communications. In addition, Sussman was representing a second client, a technology executive named Rodney Joffe, as evidenced by various written communications, Sussman's subsequent congressional testimony, and other records. Let's see. At the time, Sussman made a separate presentation regarding the Alpha Bank's allegations to another U.S. government agency, and it too concluded that materials did not show what Sussman claimed. In connection with the second presentation, Sussman made a similar false statement to that agency, claiming that he was not providing information on behalf of any client. With respect to Alpha Bank materials, our investigation established that Jaffe tasked a number of computer technology researchers who worked for companies he was affiliated with and access to certain internet records to mine the internet data to establish an inference and narrative tying then candidate Trump to Russia. In directing these researchers to exploit their access to this manner, Jaffe indicated that he was seeking to please certain VIPs, in context referring to individuals at Perkins Coie who were involved in campaign matters with the Clinton campaign. During his investigation, the office also learned that after 2016 presidential election, Jaffe emailed an individual that told the person that was tentatively offered the top cybersecurity job by the Democrats when it looked like they'd win. So again, it goes on to talk about tying all this with Fusion GPS and the Clinton campaign directly. On October 31st, less than 2 weeks before the election, the New York Times and other published articles on the Alpha Bank matter and Clinton campaign issued tweets and public statements on the allegations of a secret channel of communication being used by Trump organization and a Russian bank. Allegations that have been provided to the media and the FBI by Fusion GPS and Sussman, both of whom were working for the Clinton campaign. Get some more. Our investigation also revealed that senior FBI personnel displayed serious lack of analytical rigor toward the information they received, especially information received from political affiliated persons and entities. This information in part triggered and sustained Crossfire hurricane and contributed to the subsequent need for Special Counsel Mueller's investigation. In particular, there was significant reliance on investigative leads provided or funded directly or indirectly by Trump's political opponents. The department did not adequately examine or question these materials and motivations of those who were providing that material. Let me get down here, folks. And again, folks, I know this is not a bunch of memes on Facebook and not nearly as entertaining for sure. I won't even hit all these, but I would definitely recommend if you go through here, it basically talks about the validation of sources. It talks about the standard operating procedure when they receive source information, how to validate those things, and how the fact that the FBI completely disregarded all of those protocols whatsoever. Let's hit a couple of these questions we have here. Hit Daryl Kramer. Not incompetence, Gary. It shows the larger picture and the deep the establishment goes and how they do things to maintain power and access to easy, free money. Yeah, and honestly, I think it's more about ideological power. I don't think there's any doubt in that.
Jeff's got a couple of comments there.
Yep, throw it up there. Don't forget the Department of Treasury was involved, giving the FBI access to bank accounts and financial institutes, as well as permission to interstate the electronic records from 2 Russian banks. So that was absolutely true. And that came later on due to the FISA warrants that they got, right? So because they got the Foreign Intelligence Committee's the foreign intelligence warrants that they got through some of this evidence that they produced, they were able to basically get warrants and or work directly. I don't know if they needed a warrant or not through the Treasury, but they were able to get the Treasury to, but ultimately it was all predicated on the FBI convincing everybody, journalists, Treasury Department, and everybody else, that they had actual evidence of wrongdoing and collusion with Russia. And we can always go back to, Adam Schiff and many of the others that were saying, hey, we have proof. We will show you proof that President Trump, by that time, he was actually already president, but that he had proof that they actually had collusion, proof of collusion between Russia and trying to interfere with, the election. Colonel Mike Flynn, life ruined, tried to bankrupt him and his family. I worked with Mike back in '95, JRTC, stand-up guy and officer. And everything that I know about Mike Flynn, I agree. Great guy. He was what I think either DeSoto commander or Siege DeSoto commander. I forget which one. Anyways, we were under his command for a while, and the last time I was in Afghanistan. Let's go through here. I definitely want to get to some of the back information that was provided and see who was saying that earlier. That highlighted everything. See how much stuff I skipped?
Jason Sponsor.
Yeah, Jason.
Of course.
Do push-ups,
He knows
Jason.
what's up. Why is my mic stand falling slowly?
Mine's fine. It's you, Chris.
It is you,
guess.
Chris.
I have a larger gravitational pull.
I was gonna say that. It was at Taco Bell. It
More mass.
More mess.
was at Taco Bell.
Oh, it was good though. They had the nacho fries are back, guys. If you didn't know,
I do not like Taco Bell.
you can shut up, Summer.
It used to be
Take
good back in the day.
Chick-fil-A. Give me some Chick-fil-A.
Give
All
us some
right.
Jesus's chicken.
So the Crossfire hurricane investigation. This is where we get into some of these details that get pretty nuts. All right. The New York field office investigation of the Page. In March 2016, Carter Page, an American energy consultant, was named a foreign policy advisor to the Donald Trump 2016 presidential campaign. Page's prior business experience was largely focused on Russian and Eurasian energy issues, and as such, he frequently interacted with various Russian nationals. Based on his previous Russian contacts, Page was known to the FBI and had been interviewed on 3 occasions between 2009 and 2013 by the New York field office. In 2015, Page was again interviewed by the FBI in connection with the indictment of 3 Russian intelligence officers in the Southern District of New York. According to the criminal complaint, subsequently returned indictment in that case, Page had been approached by the intelligence officers in an apparent failed recruitment effort. Yes, ma'am. I will move that out of the way.
Thank you. Been bugging me all night.
In the criminal complaint, one intelligence officer referred to Page, anonymized as Male 1, as an idiot, and Page does not seem to have been receptive to the recruitment efforts. Page was interviewed by prosecutors as possible government witness in that case. One defendant, I'm not giving
Russian guy.
Russian guy,
Russian.
Russian guy,
I don't know it's a guy, not a woman.
Bubba Galush.
Hopefully it's a guy.
That's definitely a masculine name in Russia, I heard.
Right.
Pleaded guilty before trial and was sentenced to 30 months imprisonment. The 2 other defendants in the case were protected by diplomatic immunity and are no longer in the United States. In April 2016, shortly after Page was named as an advisor to the Trump campaign, the New York field office opened a counterintelligence investigation of him. According to the case, agent in the matter, New York field office case agent 1, in opening the investigation, the FBI was not so concerned about Page, but rather it was concerned about Russians reaching out to Page.
They couldn't pronounce his name either, so
Yeah.
it's just NYFO case of Agent 1.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easier to spell.
The records reviewed by the office demonstrated a rather clear predisposition on the part of at least certain FBI personnel at the center of Crossfire Hurricane to open investigation of Trump. For example, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were directly involved in the matters relating to the opening Crossfire Hurricane. Strzok was the agent who both wrote and approved the electronic communication opening in the matter from the very start as a full investigation rather than an assessment or preliminary investigation. At the time, Page was serving as Deputy Director Andrew McCabe's special assistant, and according to Strzok, it was McCabe who directed the Crossfire Hurricane investigation be opened immediately after information described more fully below was received from Australian authorities in July 2016. Over a period of months prior to the opening of the Crossfire Hurricane, Strzok and Page had exchanged numerous messages which are already in public domain and expressed very clear prejudice against Trump. For example, Strzok, Bernie Sanders is an idiot like Trump. What an utter idiot, no doubt. God, Trump is a loathsome human, yet he may win the Republican nomination. Good for Hillary. It is. Would be a worse president than Cruz? Trump? Yes, I think so. I'm not sure. Oh my God, Trump's an idiot. He's awful. America will get what the voting public deserves. That's what I'm afraid of. Strzok was a section chief and later the deputy assistant director in the FBI's counterintelligence division. Strzok agreed to provide information to the office concerning matters related to the FBI's Alpha Bank investigation. So here's the thing, folks. I want you to really catch this. Strzok agreed to provide the special counsel office information concerning matters related to the FBI's Alpha Bank investigation, but he declined to be interviewed by the office on matters related to his role in Crossfire hurricane investigation.
Is he allowed to decline?
Apparently. Later on, we see other people that just decline to.
So they can't like subpoena them in a special counsel investigation?
You know, I don't know. I don't know. And I think later on, Stroke was subpoenaed by Congress.
I don't know how this works, so that's why I'm asking
You know,
questions.
it's bewildering to me that when the special counsel says you have to come in and give us information on this, you can
could
just
just say
decline.
no.
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, good to know.
So you've worked in the government, Gary.
Yeah.
Me, along with probably a bunch of other people out there, is how do they come up with the name for this investigation? They say pick a board game in a natural disaster. So I mean, this could have been like
Crossfire hurricane.
yeah, this could have been like Scrabble
I
tornado,
don't know. It was that same. We come up with our own mission
or
names.
mousetrap tsunami.
I mean, you know,
Mousetrap tsunami.
I just it blows it boggles my mind that
I
they
have
were
no
like,
idea.
you know what? That's
Crossfire
it.
hurricane.
Crossfire hurricane is the name we're going with, and we have to keep saying it over and over for 300
And-
pages.
Because they had Trump in their crossfire.
What's a hurricane? What's a hurricane? I mean, if they're gonna like, I
don't
don't know. That's the government, so I can't say.
Yeah.
I like mousetrap tsunami better.
Like, hey,
do
look,
too.
we
That would be
look,
badass.
we are going to work. Basically, what they said was, look, we're going to work with multiple agencies stateside. We're going to work with some Russian spies, and we're going to work with anyone else that doesn't like Trump. So it's like a crossfire, and it all blows.
So it's
So
So they should have
think
called
that's-
it Crossfire Gary. We needed Jay in the background on that one.
dum-da-dum.
where's the? Yeah, we need some.
Hey, he would be playing the ambulance sound because
That's what it was.
Gary would get
The
burned.
ambulance. But no, I still don't understand how they come. I mean, I get it. Like in the military, y'all come up with like cool names for whatever y'all are doing because you are actually doing the work for this.
They want to sound cool.
Crossfire hurricane.
They do. They want to sound cool.
I wouldn't want to say that 38,000 times in a 300-page thing either.
I'm already tired of saying it.
Start naming it Mousetrap Tsunami. I'm still. I'm going- I'm
You
going
know
with
what? For now on, when I see it, it's going to be Mousetrap Tsunami. I'm just going to DJ that in for you, Chris. We're going to rename it, folks. Going forward, Crossfire Hurricane
sending it in
will now be
CNN.
known as Mousetrap Tsunami.
Jeff said it's hurricane because they were whipping things up.
Now we're whipping things up.
They were stirring the pot.
Now you're
Like a
now you're
gumbo.
reaching.
You know,
Now you're reaching.
hurricanes go around.
And hurricanes do destroy stuff.
Oh God,
Stir that pot
I'm
some.
embarrassed. All right, going through their
They
text
just
messages
blow.
more. Holy expletive. Cruz just dropped out of the race. It's going to be Clinton Trump race. Unbelievable. What? Yeah. So it goes on to say we're going to win so big.
Wait, go back up. I just want to point something out. Turn it on. The douchebags are about to come out. You can excite. Like,
This
Was Jay on TV?
is the assistant deputy director of
That's
counterintelligence
insane.
at the FBI.
I mean, don't
texting with another.
Government phone, by the way.
don't
On a
put it in
government
writing.
phone. On a government phone.
Don't put it in
Just
writing.
call them.
They're so stupid.
Just call them or use your personal.
Well,
Talk in the office.
here's the problem with that.
fax them.
But by the way, the problem with her calling him was that Peter Stroke was married and he was having an affair with Lisa Page, who's on this. So there would be no calling. They had
So
to
they
text
had to do
on the
them
government
on
phone.
the government phone.
There you go.
Government phone.
Dirty.
We're not supposed to
dirty.
use that for personal use.
You're
by the
not.
way.
You're not.
We're not supposed to.
It was official.
It was official.
Oh, it was
It was
official.
official use.
Talking about D bags.
Yeah.
And all kinds of D's.
Somebody was getting D's.
God, just stop. It's a family
Trump.
show.
I was talking about Democrats.
That's exactly.
I don't know what
we were talking
Chris
about.
was
DNC.
talking about.
DNC.
I guess
Plenty
I'm
of D's.
Trump is a disaster. I have no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be. Have we opened on him yet? Trump and Putin, yes, it's really a thing. This was an article that she pushed forward that was, in the media. Opening on Trump, if Hillary did, 5 field offices.
What do you mean by that? If Hillary did,
It basically is saying that if Hillary had done something like
Right.
Trump, I don't even know what.
unquote,
at
no,
that
they
Trump
wouldn't
did.
have. They
At
don't
that
do
point,
crap to Hillary.
literally
ever.
at that point, they don't even have anything to accuse Trump of because all of this stuff came literally almost the next day.
No, I'm just saying that whatever they just said is
100%, I
true
agree.
because they never open anything on.
Oh,
Hillary.
right.
Yeah.
Well, as Democrats, they felt like even her email thing was a nothing burger, right? So there's all these Democrats that feel like that Hillary, who's been a corrupt politician and a criminal for many, many years and just gotten away with it, is being unfairly persecuted. That's how they feel. So that's where that's coming from. All right.
They probably went and put bleach on her server for her.
Absolutely. As discussed more fully below, the next day, July 28th, FBI headquarters received an Australian information that formed the basis for the opening of Crossfire Hurricane. On Sunday, July 31st, 2016, Stroke, as he has written, was directed by McCabe, immediately opened Crossfire Hurricane. He both drafted and approved with the authorization of Assistant Director Priestap, which was his boss. August 8th, Trump's not going to become president, right? No, he's not.
We'll stop it.
Similarly,
Right
and as discussed in more detail below, FBI OGC attorney Kevin Kleinsmith made troubling statements demonstrating a blatant political bias against Trump. Kleinsmith, who played a central role in the Page FISA process on the day after Trump's election as president, stated to follow FBI personnel, among other things, viva la resistance, and obvious reference to those individuals opposed to Trump.
That's a cool name. Viva la resistance.
Viva la resistance. All right, so let's talk about the opening.
Better
So
than
why
Crossfire
this?
Hurricane.
Why this? It was actually what do we say?
It's Mousetrap Tsunami.
Mousetrap
Tsunami.
The opening of Mousetrap Tsunami. The FBI opened Crossfire Hurricane as a full counterintelligence investigation to determine whether individuals associated with Trump campaign were writing and or coordinating activities with the government of Russia. The information used to predicate Crossfire Hurricane. Folks, you're about to hear the most ridiculous, I don't even know what to call them. This is the reason they opened Crossfire Hurricane. In March 2016, the Trump campaign identified George Papadopoulos as a foreign policy advisor. This is a fun name to say. Papadopoulos.
I was going to say
Papadopoulos.
Papadopoulos.
Is that how you say it?
That is how you say it.
How else would you say it?
All right, so
there's some accent somewhere in there.
Papadopoulos, he was meeting with the Australian High Commissioner Alexander Downer. Both meetings were over drinks in public settings. The Australian diplomats were interested in meeting with Papadopoulos because his role in the Trump campaign and much of the conversation centered on the upcoming U.S. election. Over 2 months later, on July 26, 2016, Australia provided the U.S. Embassy at London certain information its diplomats had memorialized at or around the time of the meetings with Papadopoulos. The next day, the State Department passed this information to the FBI's legal attaché assigned to the embassy in London. Paragraph 5 was the name given to the raw information provided by the Australian government and included on May 16, 2016, cable that documented the diplomats' encounters with Papadopoulos. Mr. Papadopoulos was unsurprisingly confident Mr. Trump would win the election. He commented that the Clintons had a lot of baggage and suggested Trump team had plenty of material to use in its campaign. He also suggested that Trump had received some kind of suggestion from Russia that it could assist this process with an anonymous release of information during the campaign that would be damaging to Ms. Clinton and President Obama. It was unclear whether the Russians were referring to material acquired publicly or other means. It was also unclear how Mr. Trump's team reacted to the offer. We note that Trump's team reaction could, in the end, have little bearing of what Russia decides to do with or without Trump's cooperation.
Is that it?
No.
Sorry.
It's referring to the information. When you hear the information, it's ridiculous. The Australian account reflects that 2 meetings of casual nature took place with Papadopoulos. Those meetings were documented by Downer May 11th, 2016, and Australian diplomat later in the month. In addition, when interviewed by the office, Downer stated that he would have characterized the statements made by Papadopoulos differently than the Australian diplomat, the other diplomat that was with him, did in paragraph 5. According to Downer, Papadopoulos made no mention of Clinton emails, dirt, or any specific approach by the Russian government to the Trump campaign team with an offer or suggestion of providing assistance. Rather, Downer's recollection was that Papadopoulos simply stated the Russians have information, and that was all. So even within this one, what ends up being turned into an intel report, and later on, and by the way, it's actually said these two were not intelligence. They just referenced. They end up giving some information that they took down on notes. This was actually later produced by the FBI and was told to the media that this was gathered through a Australian intelligence agency. So they acted like it was verified intelligence. But even within this one instance, you have conflicting accounts
by the two different
people that attended the same meeting with the same person.
And they didn't try to figure that out.
No.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why? I don't understand this, and maybe it's because I'm not very political, but where is Australia in this whole thing?
So Papadopoulos happened to be over there doing something else, and
So he just hanging out.
He had dealings with energy people in that area of the
so
world.
Australia people's coming back and going, "Hey, by the way, I heard something."
Well,
Yeah,
and they were
exactly.
were diplomats. They ended up, who knows why they met with him, but basically, hey, he had been named as an advisor on the Trump campaign, and
Okay.
ultimately could end up in the U.S. In the president's administration. So it makes sense that they would want to meet with him, right?
You got me full circle now. I'm just like, that's
They wanted
kind of far
They
away.
wanted to have drinks and
I mean,
100%.
nothing wrong with that.
buddy up with.
and buddy up with a potentially the
Potential-
incoming president, which that's what diplomacy is about.
Right. Okay. That makes more sense.
Mainly
now.
drinking. All right.
That and golf.
So again, Downer's recollection was that Papadopoulos simply stated the Russians have information. Here we go. As recounted to the FBI on August 2nd, 2016 by Australian diplomat 1, the substance of paragraph 5 was written in a purposely vague way. This was done because Papadopoulos left a number of things unexplained and did not say he had direct contact. Right here's a note here in the footnotes. We note that there is an inconsistency in the statements given by Australian diplomat 1 and former High Commissioner Downer to the Crossfire. Actually, what's the name of it?
Mousetrap tsunami.
Mousetrap Tsunami. Interviewers on August 2016, and they were told at office when interviewed in October 2019. Australian diplomat 1 Downer were interviewed together in August 2016, according to FD3OT, prepared afterwards by Supervisory Agent 1. Papadopoulos made the statements about Russians during May 6, 2016 introductory meeting when he met only with Australian diplomat 1. When the two diplomats were interviewed separately by the office in October, the investigators were advised that Papadopoulos made the statements in front of both Australian diplomat 1 and Downer during the second meeting on May 10th. So they didn't even have their dates right.
Downer's saying basically when Downer was it sounds like when Downer was interviewed with his other agent, he tried to say he wasn't told that, but when he was interviewed by himself, he tried to claim that he was told that.
Absolutely.
Why doesn't the other guy get named? Just like that Russian guy. Why are they?
There may be some intel reasons why his name was redacted.
Okay, I'll give you that. But I'm just like, I'd like to know his name too.
He may not have been a diplomat at all. He may have been a Australian intelligence actor.
Gotcha. Okay, so they're keeping him safe.
100%.
Gotcha.
The impression Papadopoulos made on the Australian diplomats was wide-ranging. On one hand, he had an inflated sense of self, was insecure, and was trying to impress. On the other hand, he was a nice guy, was not negative, and didn't name drop. Downer noted that he was impressed. Papadopoulos acknowledged his lack of expertise and felt the response was uncommon for someone of Papadopoulos' age, political experience, and for someone thrust into the spotlight overnight. Many people in similar position would represent themselves differently, and Downer would have sniffed them out. If Downer believed Papadopoulos was a fraud, he would not have recorded and reported on the meeting he had with Papadopoulos. Downer also said that he did not get a sense Papadopoulos was the middleman to coordinate with Russians. Here's the lack of intelligence information supporting the premise of Crossfire Hurricane. As an initial matter, there is no question that the FBI had an affirmative obligation to closely examine paragraph 5 information. The paragraph 5 information, this report, however, was the sole basis by the FBI for opening full investigation into individuals associated with ongoing Trump campaign. Significantly, the FBI opened a full investigation before any preliminary discussions or interviews were undertaken with either the Australian diplomats or Papadopoulos. Further, the opening EC, which was the opening electronic communication, does not describe any collaboration or joint assessments of the information with either friendly or foreign intelligence services or other U.S. intelligence agencies. In effect, within 3 days of its receipt of paragraph 5 reporting, the FBI determined without further analysis that Australian information was adequate basis for opening a full investigation into whether individuals associated with an ongoing presidential campaign were witting of and or coordinating activities with the government of Russia.
So they took this casual notes that these two Russian,
In a bar.
two Australian
Essentially,
people wrote.
essentially hearsay. Was it written or was it
They
talked
wrote
about?
notes down.
Well,
Yeah, but it was
from memory, they wrote notes.
Yeah.
right.
But
so,
then they couldn't even.
they spoke about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was like,
it's
hey,
not
let me
even
write this down on a
And they
piece
couldn't
of,
even get their story straight
piece
as
of
to what was
college
actually
ruled
said.
paper.
Well, and here's it gets a little bit.
And how much do they
it
get
gets a
paid
little
for
bit
doing that?
more conflated here in just a second too, because
tell you that.
things get weird. In an interview with the office, Executive Assistant Director for National Security Michael Steinbach commented on the sufficiency of the information in the opening EC, saying that it was poorly written. Steinbach added that the EC should not be read to suggest the FBI was investigating the Trump campaign, but only those potential subjects within the campaign whose activities justified an inquiry. Steinbach was also questioned separately by the OIG on the amount of information that should normally be included in an EC opening counterintelligence case. He said that it should be a logical summary sufficient to justify the opening. Although not referencing the opening EC, FBI officials have later pointed to the importance of the Australian information when viewed in conjunction with Russia's likely connection to the WikiLeaks disclosures and its efforts to interfere with the 2016 U.S. elections. In addition, Trump also stated in a recently televised campaign speech, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. So, again, this is where things get a little bit crazy.
Maybe their FBI is better.
The evidence the office reviewed shows that there were internal discussions with the FBI headquarters, including that with Deputy Director, about the decision to open Crossfire Hurricane or Mousetrap, whatever. Tsunami. The executives were unanimous in supporting the opening of the investigation, and there was no indication that these discussions contemplated anything short of an immediate full investigation, such as an assessment or preliminary investigation into the meaning, credibility, and underpinnings of the statements attributed to Papadopoulos. The personnel involved in the decision to open full investigation have stated that they acted within basically the SOP of opening an investigation.
Sure they did.
Oh, of course.
So right here,
Another
it
thing
also goes on to say that according to, but notably, the also explicitly cautions FBI employees to avoid reputational risk to those being investigated by, among other things, specifying different standards for opening an assessment, a preliminary investigation, and a full investigation, with a corresponding continuum of permissible investigative activities. That measured approach did not appear to have been followed with respect to Crossfire Hurricane. Instead, as described above, on Sunday, just 3 days before receiving the 3 days after receiving the unanalyzed information from Australia, Stroke authored and approved the Crossfire Hurricane opening EC. Thus, a full counterintelligence investigation into what?
Well, he's never seen a computer run out a highlighter. The green must be getting a little lighter as we're getting lower down in this. He ain't lying. He said lots of info, but damn.
Oh, God.
All right. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, I started
And I still think every time I read a government document like this and stuff like that, why isn't there any other ever any normal names? You got like Papadopoulos, you got this Strzok, you got all these Deshekov.
There's never a Smith.
Where's the Smith Johnsons? Any Adams? I'll even take a Washington or something.
There was a Lisa.
There's a bill.
There was a
There's a bill in
Lisa.
here.
There was a Lisa too.
One out of 300
Lisa
pages.
Page.
Lisa.
Yeah.
All right, so hold
still
on.
weird to me.
So this is a big part of this.
Be leery of all weird names.
The OIG. So the OIG, the Australian High Commissioner Downer said he was prompted to turn over paragraph 5 information upon seeing Trump's televised news conference, during which Trump made his "Russia, if you're listening" comment. So basically, what they're saying, folks, is he said, "You know what? I had this information, and as soon as I saw that, I had to come forward and provide this information." So he ends up getting it to basically British intelligence somehow. He ends up sending it to the
to the Queen.
No, I'm sorry, not British intelligence. He ended up sending it to the embassy our embassy in London.
Gotcha.
Because the FBI had a.
I mean, after he
Basically.
heard, "Hey, Russia, you listen," he was like, "Oh my
Yeah,
god!"
so at this point,
we have this written down
yeah.
on a napkin. Let's send this in, right? I mean, that's essentially what you're telling me.
Chris, you're on fire today.
Oh, this is dumb, especially for $6.5 million.
So here's the problem with that statement, though. Moreover, Downer and the Australian officials came to the U.S. Embassy with paragraph 5 information on July 26th, one day before Trump's televised news conference.
So he
Oh.
lied.
As referenced in the footnote 189, Stroke declined to be interviewed by the office on this and other subjects.
Declined.
So that was the note by Stroke that he said, hey, this guy's coming to talk to us because he saw this, what Trump said.
Right.
But that had already, they
somebody
actually
already
were there
said,
a day before.
"What's up, bro? Hey, Trump's about to speak."
The very next day after that, they opened up Crossfire Hurricane. The speed of this action sharply contrasts with Stroke's decision-making in referral in September 2016 of a matter
another
involving former Congressman Anthony Wieners.
Speaking
There's
of
another
name.
name.
Anthony Weiner.
Oh, Wiener.
You can't have a good report without Anthony Weiner, laptop computer. In that instance, according to the OIG, FBI and Stroke did not act for over a month to pursue legal process to review thousands of missing emails, Clinton emails, found on
this Wiener's
the Weiner's laptop.
The wiener. I mean, sorry.
FBI officials have acknowledged that they were aware the information concerning Papadopoulos did not come from Australia's intelligence services, but rather from Australian diplomats who were previously unknown to the FBI personnel handling the paragraph 5 information. In various interviews, several FBI officials have opined that the FBI was justified in opening Crossfire Hurricane as a full investigation because, in part, the information was given to the FBI from trusted partner and therefore was deemed reliable.
Define trusted partner.
Apparently, the Australians.
That's the
Well,
Wiener guy.
The implication of that was they were intelligence partners. That they were basically saying that, hey, this came from an intelligence agency overseas.
Picked by who?
Exactly.
Somebody said, please turn to PowerPoint slide 900.
That must be on Wiener's laptop. We don't have that one. I don't think.
This is not Wiener's laptop.
It's a
Could be.
Wiener's laptop, but just
Could
not
be.
Anthony Wiener's. Mr. Riojas. Yes, he does have an unfortunate name. Oh, Tony Wiener.
Laughing at Jason. I saw it earlier, but it's still funny.
I can't stop laughing. They
The run out of highlight.
Never doing this again.
Oh, you Wiener.
Oh my God, I'm crying.
Yeah. Mousetrap tsunami investigation being formally opened. The FBI Inspection Division reports describe similar statements by others as noted by the FBI internal review. This lack of intelligence did not appear to have considered significant. Russian intelligence knew of Steele's election investigation for the Clinton campaign by no later than early 2016. Thus, as discussed, Steele sources may have been compromised by Russians at the time prior to the creation of the Steele reports and throughout the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation. So they were well aware that they had a guy that was asking for intelligence on Donald Trump, and they could have very well been feeding that information to Steele and ultimately Dunchenkov, who was the source of the Steele dossier. In preparation for their interview, Stroke and supervisory. So they went to go. They went. Stroke and another agent went to go to London to actually interview
The Australians
in London. So, anyways,
To assess and clarify exactly what had been said by.
yep.
Surprised they even made the effort to go
Yeah,
try
and
to interview
provide-
them.
and provide it to the U.S. government.
So he pointed out the inherent importance of sharing information with the British intelligence. So basically, what they did was they called up the FBI's attaché at the embassy there in London, and they told them what they were coming to do, and said, "Hey, look, we want to make sure we coordinate this with British Intel, MI5, and so they wanted to make sure that they knew what was going on, And basically, we're also going to see if they had additional information, right? Papadopoulos allegations involving possible Russian influence in the Trump campaign. Given the nature of the allegations, the speed with stroke and supervisory special agent 1 needed the assistant. The FBI attaché, assumed that the FBI's interview of the Australian diplomats was exceptionally critical. The attaché also believed that the Crossfire hurricane investigators likely were in possession of compelling facts beyond what he understood from the substance of Papadopoulos' claim in paragraph 5. Nevertheless, independent impressions of the predication for the investigation was echoed by Special Agent 1 in a linked chat that the attaché, during which the predication was referred to as thin. These exchanges with the special agent stroke resonated with the attaché because in sharing the Papadopoulos information with British intel counterparts at the time, they expressed real skepticism about the motivation and reliability of Papadopoulos. The UK attaché told the office that British intelligence services did not assess the information about the Russians and Trump attributed to Papadopoulos to be particularly valuable intelligence. Indeed, he told the FBI's Special Inspection Division investigators that the British could not believe that Papadopoulos' bar conversation was all there was, and they were convinced the FBI must have more information that it was holding back. As it relates to the predication for opening Crossfire Hurricane as a full investigation, after Stroke and Supervisory Special Agent 1 had traveled to London and interviewed the Australian diplomats on August 2nd, the following link exchange between the attaché and Special Agent 1 was as such. Dude, are we telling them everything we know, or is there more to this? That's all we have. Not holding anything back. Damn, that's thin. He goes on to say,
thank you.
Went on to tell Inspection Division that in discussing the matter with senior British Intel Service official, the official was openly skeptical, said the FBI's plan for an operation made no sense, and asked the attaché why the FBI did not just go to Papadopoulos and ask him what he wanted to know.
Did the FBI ever interview Papadopoulos?
I don't believe so. Not at this time. And so far, up to like page 80 or whatever, I haven't seen that. At a later point in time, after the Mueller special counsel team was in place, the attaché said the British finally had enough. And in response to a request for assistance, the British intelligence service basically said there was no fucking way in hell that they were going to do it. They basically were laughing about it. Says, for F's sake, man, you went through a lot of trouble to get him to say nothing when they're talking about actually meeting with Carter Page. So, you know, the UK intel guys thought it was an entire joke. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more that goes on there. Go ahead and pull that down for a minute there, Tyler. So, folks, you know, that right there, that was the beginning. That's what predicated the entire Russian collusion investigation, was that meeting with Papadopoulos. It goes on to talk
bunch
about
of hearsay.
It's a
In a
bunch of
bar in
hearsay,
Australia.
nothing confirmed. And, you know, it goes on to talk about how John Brennan and Deputy Director Cohen were interviewed by the office, were asked about their knowledge and the actual evidence members of the Trump campaign. Anyways, it goes on to talk about basically they were aware of Russia knowing about the investigation. They were aware that Russia and that Hillary was doing this in conjunction with people on the ground in Russia to vilify Trump. They knew what was going on, and they briefed then President Obama, then Vice President Biden, amongst many other folks. So, you know, it's absolutely crazy. And this particular paragraph right here in all green, this is where I ran out of green, Jason.
I did notice you did some underlining.
It talks about the fact that when Brennan was actually in front of basically some of the things that Brennan was saying in Congress and in other testimony, he said that they knew of nothing. He confirmed that there was no link between Russia and Trump. But then later on TV and other statements where he wasn't under oath, you know, he basically was inferring either indirectly or directly that they had intelligence on Trump. So he was acting as a political piece of shit. So, but folks, again, I got the rest of this on our Patreon on open source, so you can go check that out. I did try to go through, believe it or not, and cut out as much as possible, but there's a lot of nuance. It ties everything together that just didn't seem like it made sense to completely overlook.
Something you've alluded to a couple of times, Chris. You said it was $6.5 million to generate this report.
Hold on, let me pull that up real quick on my high piece of technology here.
So the FBI making all this stuff up, that costs
By
money.
the way,
the Mousetrap tsunami investigation cost taxpayers millions of dollars, I'm sure.
so this came out on the 15th, right, Gary? Is that when it was?
I think so.
I think that's what I read.
And then the Durham report and
So the Durham report came out like whatever it was, May 15th.
yeah.
They spent 6.5 mil as of last December.
And that's
we
not
still
even including the Mueller report and all the other investigations that they did.
That's just this one thing the 300 pages. What's that cost per page? Do the math on that.
I don't know.
Right. $7.
$700.
I'm about to do it.
About $800 a page, something like that. I'm just joking. Yeah,
$21,000 a page typed. I'll type that.
And Jason, that really
21,000.
thing, and what Jason's sponsor says there really does kind of underline the entire thing. That is the synopsis. They had nothing the entire time. Nope. As a matter of fact, it goes on to talk about all the conflicting information, the exculpatory information that they had that basically proved that Trump had no connections with Russia or anything else. And then it goes on to basically kind of compare and contrast how Trump was treated, how his investigations were open, whereas the same people that were involved, it talks about 2 other investigations that Hillary was implicated on, but they decided to shut those down. So, there was a huge difference. There's 2 justice systems. There's clearly 2 justice systems in our country. And, when you see what went on here, fabricating evidence, ignoring exculpatory evidence, and just looking and grasping at straws to find something that could possibly, and there's nothing here that any sane person would look at and say, hey, you know what, we need to open an investigation and into a candidate that for president of the United States.
And they purposely avoided vetting their information. I mean, for God's sakes, they didn't even say, oh, you know what, let's go under interview this guy Papadopoulos before we open an investigation, or even shortly thereafter.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was.
They just they needed a breadcrumb to start. That was it.
That's all they needed.
They said, did you say something about Trump?
And then they didn't even look for the full slice of bread.
No, they didn't. That's all they needed.
So
that's all rats need is just a crumb.
Where's this go from here? That's my question. Does this mean that people could be indicted or charged?
No.
If you read further into it, 3 people went to trial and 2 people. 2.
So 2 people went to trial.
No, it was 3,
they beat
wasn't
the
it?
charges. No, a third one I think was indicted, and then he claimed he
I forget.
He pled guilty.
By people, do you mean people in the FBI that did this,
No.
or intelligence sources?
there was one person in the FBI. I think there was a couple of the people that they found out gave false statements. But and folks, you get down to this. This is page 68, and it starts talking about the FBI's and the department's disparate treatment of the candidates Clinton and Trump, and the differences of those between those two. It's pretty insane. Basically what you have at the beginning of this, it talks about some of the agents that were tasked to do this, even that legal attaché, which was really an FBI agent that was assigned at the London embassy. He was frustrated that he was going to have to do this, but he basically said, hey, they were already pushing for this. All I had to do was do my job and grease the skids. There was no turning back, essentially, is what he said. He was very frustrated with the lack of information and was trying to explain this to his counterparts, which were, British intelligence guys.
So the whole point of this report is hey, this is how messed up,
stupid
the FBI is, and these are all the things they did wrong, but there's no consequences.
Right now, there's no consequences.
Igor
no wonder
Dushenko was tried and found not guilty.
Yeah,
for lying to the FBI. The other dude, we didn't get to, I
Yeah,
don't
but
think we
that's
made it
not
to.
that's not really
Did we
who
get-
I'm. That's not really who I'm talking about. Sure, they can try to like.
But yeah, General Flynn was
we-
tried and found guilty.
Did we get to Clownsmith?
It talked about he was found guilty, right?
Yeah, sentenced to 1 year probation
Yeah.
and $400 of community service.
Yeah, because he
And who is
lied.
he?
So
After admitting in a 2020 plea agreement, he altered government email.
So he altered a government email, which was ultimately used to get an additional
get the
additional
wiretap.
Gotcha.
FISA warrant, or extend the FISA warrant. I don't remember which exactly
For
was
the
true.
Trump campaign.
But
400 hours of community service.
Yeah.
And a year probation. You bad boy.
but folks, I mean, when you look at what the implication of this actually is, and that is we have a conspiracy between politicians, by our own Justice Department, by the
Our
media,
own executive branch.
working together to
Our Bureau of
to basically
Investigation.
unseat a president, right? And to I mean, undermine a president. I mean, it was a bureaucratic coup. That's really what it was. And you had all these people working with each other, working in coordination, and covering for one another. It's absolutely crazy. And then, basically you had the FBI releasing information and other people releasing information illegally, by the way. And then that information going into the media. And then you had the FBI confirming their sources and information through that information that was released from the FBI, essentially. And that's how they were using it as a confirmation. So
Quality.
it is utter incompetence. And it's just I mean, honestly, anybody out there listening to this right now or reads this, there's no way that we could ever believe that the FBI would be working in good faith ever again. I don't. I would question any charges they brought up against anybody ever again, and they've lost all credibility. And I don't know what needs to be done. I don't know what the answer is. The easy answer is, well, they need to just be disbanded and we rebuild it. I don't know if that's the answer. The ATF needs to be disbanded because they're.
Could you bring this article up if we get arrested and go to trial with the FBI? I'd be like, hey,
Well,
by the
probably.
way,
I'm going to bring this as definitely
look what y'all did.
Yep. No, that's a great point, though.
You know what I mean?
I mean, hey, folks. By the way, jury, my attorney, look what the FBI is known to do and how they fabricate evidence. Yeah.
On Mousetrap
how
can
can
Tsunami specifically.
Mousetrap Tsunami. Remember what they did?
Yeah.
Or
didn't
Operation.
do,
Mousetrap Tsunami.
Vince is kind of echoing what I said here. He said, with all the corruption coming to light, one would think that there would be a flood of arrests, prosecutions, and firings. We shall see if there are enough good people left in government to do the right thing.
And what's insane, again, that as I was researching this today, looking for somebody that had a good detailed synopsis that didn't use as much highlighter on the computer as I did.
Hurt my eyes.
Look, you guys matched the highlighter. I'm sorry.
I mean, just all you got to do is Google search any of this, folks, and all you see is a flood of news reports talking about how this didn't prove anything, how and then you have everybody out there talking about, talking about points of this that have been disproven and said, yeah, that may not be true, but this is.
But
even though it clearly points to the fact that there's people still referring to the Alpha One Bank or whatever it is, saying that was proven to be a fact. That's not proven to be a fact. And that's the problem is
literally
that
said he told them to make up stuff.
There's no way to go back and correct the record. And there's nobody being held accountable. And they knew that. They knew that going in. They knew that they were untouchable. And that's the reality of what we have going on today. So,
oh yeah.
Well, and this will make them feel even more untouchable because you got all this proof and investigation that they did all this stuff and there will be no consequences. So this will only empower them even more.
It absolutely will. And all we got to do is look back at what we have for bureaucrats and other agents within different agencies. We have a history of them getting away with absolute murder for all intents and purposes, right? So everything from Lois Lerner and the IRS scandal. None of these people are ever held accountable, which is why we've got to make it to where the executive branch can definitely fire these bureaucrats. Once you are in government, it's almost impossible to fire you. Once you're GS or any other within that system
I
at
see
all,
it daily at work.
it is impossible to fire people. So that is why there is nothing that is more inefficient and more costly than having the government do anything. If you want to absolute waste money, have the government do it.
The report mention Andrew McCabe, and it just reminded me of how he got fired right before his retirement, but then he fought and got the back pay. But I just happened to Google his name, and the first headline that came up, it says, fired FBI official Andrew McCabe claims the Durham Report is not a legitimate investigation.
There you go.
He should know.
He should
Right?
know.
He should know.
Craig Smith.
He knows all about legitimate
I like
investigations.
what Craig said.
Throw up what Craig said
That
there,
is,
Tyler.
that is legit. That's something I've been
Trump gets elected, to be interesting
about
if he
lately.
declassifies. Yeah, so
My dad got me hooked on that, to be honest with you, and I've been watching a lot of stuff on that. That needs to be brought back up.
it does need to be rolled back. I mean, the American people deserve to know if that was, almost everything points to the fact that it was most likely an inside job.
And this many people.
Or more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Or more. There's
Minimum.
There's a theory that there was at least 4 different shooters.
Well, they had to have all their corners covered, essentially.
So, and besides that, folks, going back to if Trump gets reelected, look, I'll be honest with you. There's a part of me, and I'd like to hear what you guys have to say on this. There's a part of me that actually, there's a lot of things that I like about DeSantis better than Trump. But here's how I feel about that whole thing. Like, we've got to get Trump reelected because we cannot let this stand. We cannot let them know that they won this round, right? I mean, we've got to get Trump reelected just on principle. And I don't care if you like him or don't like him or anything else. Again, there's a
if
big...
you like morals and ethics and principles.
Yeah, like,
then...
I want to see him reelected just so I can see liberals' heads explode once again. I want to see them out screaming in the street.
Now we got Twitter wide open for him, too, now.
Yeah.
It's game on, baby.
We got to get him back on Twitter.
Elon.
We got to get him off True Social and back on Twitter.
Thank you, Elon.
Or do both.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I just don't think that we can let this stand. Trump, without a doubt. And here's the thing. Look, I'll admit, Trump is not the most moral person.
Nah.
He's not. He's
a crazy old SOB.
He is, but at the same time, he was also a good leader for this country. He said the right things in that he didn't always say them the right way.
Correct.
But, he called out the UN for the garbage organization that they are. They just suck the earth dry of money, mainly from the U.S. He's constantly calling out the European Union and everybody involved with that on how the fact that they contribute almost nothing to the rest of the world. None of our other leaders, including DeSantis, will do that. DeSantis will not call out all these other countries that are contributing nothing, and we're, giving so much to all these different causes, all these different things, and basically funding corruption and terrorism all over the world.
I remember when
pissed me off.
Trump first came into the running for president, and I think one of my first comments to you was, he's very unpresidential.
Yeah, no, he is.
And you're like, yeah, but what I came to like about Trump was that he would say something, and he'd say it in the most unpresidential, undignified way, but he would say something and you could count on him to try to follow through on it, mostly as a matter of pride, because if he said something, he was going to try to do it just to show you that he would and show you that he could, but it got a lot of stuff accomplished. I mean, that was one thing I liked about him, is that if he said something, then he was going to give it his best to do it.
And
gas
folks,
was cheaper.
Gas was definitely cheaper. Our economy
Milk
was doing
cheaper.
Our economy was doing much better.
Yeah.
If I hear one more person talk about, the deficit while Trump was in office, referring to the massive amount of spending we did during COVID.
Debt ceiling we're about to have to move up again.
We're still spending money for COVID, by the way.
We absolutely are. And there's billions of dollars that are
Let me tell
unaccounted
you
for.
how many emails and phone calls we get daily for all these agencies and consultants that want to get PPP loans for us or PPP grants. And I'm like, we don't need that. We don't want that. Freaking leave us alone.
Oh, yeah.
They just want to give away that government money.
You don't want to know why?
Okay.
Because they get a consultant.
Yo, that I know. 100%.
And,
they do.
And those agencies that provide that money will pay for that consultant fee of whatever they write.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry I interrupted.
Do you need some PPE?
Tyler, throw up
KN95s?
some of these comments.
Need some sandy wipes?
We'll talk about that after.
Some boot covers?
PPE.
Bouffant
PPP.
caps?
President must wrest from Congress the hire and fire right to maintain the separation of power. Absolutely, he does.
Didn't he fire Andrew McCabe?
I think he did.
He has the authority to do some hiring and firing, right? Or
Very limited.
appointing.
Yeah,
It's very limited.
Yeah.
Trump's ability to make leftist heads spin and catch fires, it's amazing.
It
I
is
love
great.
I mean, we're definitely going to go through 4 more years of
Here's a comment.
CNN's ratings might go back up a little bit.
He said, heavily disagree. Trump is bad for 2A, talks out of both sides of his mouth. I do think he was not great for Second Amendment.
I think
that was one of the things I was upset that he said he was going to do, which was repeal NFA, and he didn't.
Sure. So
that's
there were some things that he was, first of all, you got to understand where Trump's coming from. Trump is coming from the fact that he's a New Yorker, and, you know, he's a businessman that knows little to nothing about the 2A. He, on top of that, I do believe him when he said on that CNN town hall, he talked about when they asked him about bump stocks, right? He said, hey, look, I took the advice of the NRA. I do think that his policies end up aligning very suspiciously with the NRA. I do think that he had people with the NRA advising him and telling him what people would like and would want, and basically just advising him on all things gun related. And I think that's a problem too, because the NRA is a freaking terrible organization.
True.
You want to get me using some expletives? I think the NRA is absolute garbage, and all there is a fundraising machine that looks out for themselves and makes sure that Wayne LaPierre spends his time on private jets and has nice clothes to wear. So, you know, I think they're good at raising money and convincing people after an 8-hour class that they're a good firearm instructor after they spend $100. That's what the NRA does. So I think they fall along.
And they have the American people brainwashed that they're this
Oh, yeah.
wonderful
Because they used to be.
Second Amendment.
You get the sticker for your truck.
So
as soon as you pay your money,
which
and you
is
get your hat.
which is why Trump probably maybe thought he was doing a good thing by taking the NRA's advice, because they have done a very good job of marketing themselves as the authority and the advocate for Second Amendment.
With that being said, and maybe there's something else. I feel like there was something else in regards to that he fell flat on that I disagree with. But other than the bump stock issue, which is not an insignificant issue, by the way, I am completely against that. I'm completely against in all things NFA. I think NFA is the most unconstitutional law that has ever passed. But with that being said, I can't think of any other issues. There has been so many times that he has stood up and fought pretty hard for gun rights in many different ways, or at least spoke a good game. So with that being said, while I am about a 90% to 10%, you know, gun rights issue voter, I mean, I really don't know how well DeSantis will do on that or anything else. And either way, regardless of what's going on, Trump can't act alone, right? So, I mean, we've got to get other people in Congress. But I still do have an issue. I still think it would be better for this country if Trump was reelected, just to prove that they didn't win and to right some wrongs. Because here's the truth. Had we not had that original controversy when it came to convincing the American people that he was a stooge of Russia, we wouldn't have had the follow-on investigations and other controversies that came up. And I think without a doubt, we would have overwhelmingly won that election more than we actually did.
I
disagree. By the way.
I think they would have stole it either way. They were so taken surprise in 2016 that there was no way they wouldn't be prepared to steal that election in 2020.
So, and that's another issue. I do think so. I do think there was a large piece of the population that would have voted for Trump that may have overcome any sort of election fraud that we had they not convinced the American people that
I
he
think
was
they just
he
would
was
have
a
paused
stooge of
counting
Russia.
even more in the middle of the night and brought
Maybe
in
they
more
would've. Maybe they
suitcases
would've.
of ballots.
Are you even going to swing those people with this report that came out? Are you even going to swing them? Because
they're not reading it.
Unless somebody Googles it, that's the only way you're going to be able to read about it. There's nothing in your face like the Bud Light cans in your face.
So
here's
the problem. Here's the problem. Number one, we have ideologues running the media, right? So they're leftist extremists, period.
Exactly.
So they're never going to give this the credit that it deserves.
So how do you get it out there?
You're
not going to.
I don't know.
You're not going to. So the average dude sitting in the middle of West Virginia that doesn't have cable, he's never going to hear about it ever.
He probably doesn't even know what the Durham Report is.
No.
Doesn't even know it exists.
Well, he just heard on one of the things that Hillary probably said, hey, you're colluding with Russia. That's what he remembers.
That's what he remembers. You're right.
Well, that's what they remember. And on top of that, the media is going to have a hard time giving this any credibility because their own credibility was tied to the credibility of the FBI. So you're right in many
You
ways.
see
And then
how
on
that
top
went.
of that, you have so many people that their credibility, because they were pushing this narrative as well. So their credibility is tied to it as well. Their personal credibility, because they said, Trump was a stooge of Russia.
Oh, yeah.
And they told all their friends and had all the Facebook arguments and did all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that they're going to go back and say they're wrong. Just like there's no way that people are going to go back and say they're wrong about COVID, about masking, about everything else, because
This whole
they're
thing
too
you talked
invested
about
in it.
tonight is swept under a big rug.
It's kind of off subject, but kind of ties into the whole media spin on everything. I like to watch documentaries, and I watch PBS Frontline documentaries, and I swear every single one is so leftist propaganda. And I was watching.
Really?
Yeah, I always take it, and I'm like, I know that part's not
Right,
true,
right,
and I
right.
know you guys are spinning this the way you want it, but I just watched one on Clarence and Jenny Thomas and their influence in Washington and how he became Supreme Court Justice. And of course, and it was just spun so left and so anti Clarence Thomas, and it was crazy. Just taking away all of his accomplishments, where he came from to where he got to, and everything he did was for just a little bit of power in Washington, and that's the whole reason he went to the conservative side. And it was just so crazy the way it was spun.
Hey, real quick, Tyler, throw up Matt K's comment there at the top. So I don't necessarily disagree with you on the fact that bump stocks are a novelty. What I do disagree with you, Matt, on is the fact that we can't allow anything like that be declared, because it's such a slippery slope. And immediately when they won regarding bump stocks, they immediately started going after triggers as well.
The next thing. Then the next thing.
It's going to be the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And we can't give up an inch. We can't. And again, if we believe that, name your item, AR-15s. If AR-15s are constitutional and owning one is a constitutional right, then you better believe owning a piece of plastic you put on an AR-15 is constitutional, and we have to fight for that just as hard. Just as hard as everything else. I think bump stocks are freaking stupid.
They're a piece of junk.
But I also believe that everybody has an absolute, on many different reasons for this, because number one, we have a constitutional right to, because it is not a machine gun, doesn't even fall under an NFA, never has been, never will, and it makes no sense to even put it there. But on top of that, just like pistol braces, you already own, it's your property, and now the government is banning your property and saying you have to give up that property or you will become a felon. Like, so now, not only it'd be one thing, I'd be less adamant about this or upset about this if they grandfathered them in. But not only are they banning them, they're saying the property that you already own, that you bought legally, you now either have to give up, or if you're caught with it, you can become a felon.
Or register.
Or register it. Like I have problems with all of that stuff. So if we give up on bump stocks, if we give that up, we're giving up the kit and caboodle. That's just the reality. And I think we need to be,
because next it'll be this trigger and that trigger, and then eventually all triggers.
And that's
It'll be all the barrel. Then the ammo.
And that's the thing too, Matt, is that was almost a dividing issue amongst gun owners. Like, most of us thought those were stupid. So you didn't hear anybody, but at some point in time, it's going to be another thing that most people don't care about. And braces are an example of this. Here's what I'll tell you. I think that if we had fought harder on the bump stock issue, we would never be seeing the issue that we're seeing with braces right now, because it is a slippery slope, and it will be that one thing that you don't care about. So you're not going to fight for, like, I don't care about those. I don't care about 14-inch barrels. They're going to pass a law to where now you have to have a 16-inch barrel, or now it's an 18-inch barrel, or, you can't have an aftermarket trigger. All of those things are coming, folks. And ultimately, they're going to continue to try to ban the AR-15. But if we don't get outraged on the little things that we don't care that much about,
they're going to keep coming for the other things.
We're going to lose ground.
Still keep stepping.
Yep, we're going to continue.
The bump
to lose
stock
ground.
was after the Jason Aldean concert, right?
No,
in Vegas.
It was after Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Okay, I was just making sure. My mind was right.
Kind of back to the presidential thing. Craig Smith's got a good comment here. He says, the only issue I have with Trump is his age. I kind of want to hear your guys' take on this, which is why I'm bringing it up. At his age, you now have to consider who his VP is going to be. Biden has the same issue. No one on both sides wants Kamala as president. Oh my God.
I think she'd be an excellent
that
president.
cackle. Oh,
I think she'd be a great president.
I think Gary should run as VP.
No. Well, first of all, Craig, I'm pretty convinced. I don't care.
Solid. No.
I don't know how old you are, Craig.
2 redheads in the
But
office.
what are you talking about?
You see Trump's hair? It's probably dyed. It's not natural like yours.
it's not red. It's yellow.
The flowing mane of Gary.
Anyway,
I don't know how old you are, Craig. I'm 42, about to be 43 in a couple months. But
Sheesh.
everybody here thought you were older than me.
what's going on? The AARP is knocking at the door. Jesus.
I ain't even got
I'm
a 4
pretty
in front of
convinced.
my age
I'm
yet.
convinced Trump is going to outlive us all. That guy,
Hey.
he may be, what is he? He's 78.
What? Yeah, I don't know.
I think
It's all the
78.
Diet Cokes and McDonald's.
Oh, that's
Jesus.
That dude
breakfast
is-
of champions.
all
that
the
dude-
all the preservatives.
Why do you think I look so good?
Is that why you're holding your paper here?
Yeah, right? No, I just don't even care.
Yeah, I'm with Real Haas on this. My issue is mental competence, and I'll tell you, there's lots of guys.
Who's in there now?
Mental competence and overall, just
Like mental
willing
acuity.
to fight.
Acuity.
Willing to
Yeah, I
fight.
like that word.
Yeah.
That's my thing too. Is Trump doesn't mind taking it to whoever.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he's beaten the Democrats at their own game.
Yep.
Guess what? The person that I thought was extremely unpresidential was Obama, and the many things he did and said. I thought I was appalled by some of the things that he did and said. He was the first one to start really pushing the whole, during the Obama administration, that was the first time that race started becoming a major issue, because every time that Republicans opposed Obama on policy matters,
Racist.
it was pointed out as a racist. Do you guys remember the Tea Party? How that was like the most racist organization. Now, the only thing that is more racist than the Tea Party right now is Patriot Front.
Well, and then they
Which-
weaponized the IRS against the Tea Party.
Absolutely
They have been
they did.
weaponizing the freaking 3-letter agencies.
Yep.
I'd still rather have
the
Obama over
It was the
Biden.
most peaceful,
Sorry.
diverse organization on the planet, the Tea Party. And then you had them completely demonized effectively. But that's where race became an issue, was under, I remember. So I was actually in Iraq when President Obama won the election there in 2008. And I was so pissed off because there were actually several guys on my team, come to find out, had voted. And I was pissed, man. And again, not
Voted
because,
for Obama?
voted for Obama. There's several guys. I'll tell you who they
Ew.
were later. I couldn't believe it. But then,
I
after
bet I can guess one.
after I got over it, I was like, all right,
Jay.
you know what? At least we can put the race issue to bed. You can no longer say that, America is some racist. It got worse. It got 1,000 times worse, because now anytime that you disagree with Obama, it was because of race. You were just it was an 18 Delta, but it was also our 18 Charlie, and we had an 18 Charlie that I definitely know.
That's who I'm thinking of, I think.
JJ did. Remember JJ?
Yeah.
And
He was a
and
little weasel. Sorry.
I don't know if he's a weasel. He's definitely different.
Yeah,
And
I
I think-
didn't
He
get
ain't
a
even
good
here to defend himself.
I didn't get a good
Son
vibe
just
from
threw him in
him.
the ditch.
He was fine, but they, SF probably not probably. There's a lot more leftist leaning guys in SF than you think. That's for sure.
So are you telling me you'd rather have Biden over Obama?
I'd rather have Biden over Obama.
Yeah.
How did you infer that?
You're saying
Are you even listening?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Your Taco Bell's gone to your head.
Oh no, not at all. But I'm just saying you
It's Claude Day.
you have literally
I didn't say
hated
that.
on Obama more than I've ever heard you hate on Biden.
That's not true at all.
No, that's not true. I literally said like
I'm
two
feeling
paragraphs.
that way right
where-
now.
2 paragraphs.
I can't believe it's not my fault. You
How
don't like
much
Obama.
did you drink out of that bottle?
No, it's
'Cause you're
all right.
I don't like Obama.
you're
I would
listening.
rather have him over Biden though.
I don't
You
know.
would rather have
no.
Biden
So
Biden over
No.
Obama?
I'd rather have Obama over Biden.
here's what I'll tell you.
100%, hands down.
Why?
I didn't have any problems with Obama.
So here's the problem with Obama. Obama got more done behind the scenes because he was a slick,
Snake.
eloquent politician.
Was it because he's married to a man?
Jesus.
Dear God. I think the YouTube one just got clinked. Got clinked.
YouTube has cut us off.
I mean,
Well,
there's like a lot of information on
that is an interesting conspiracy. Anyways, let's stay on topic.
Okay, sorry.
The fact of the matter is that I think Obama was more effective pushing a radical left agenda than we'll ever realize, and more got done behind.
For sure.
And I also
okay,
think,
I'll give you that.
And I also think that it's primarily people directly tied to Obama that is pushing the policies and controlling Biden to this very day. I think Biden.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Biden is tofu. You know, like
he's mushy food,
and he's not a good communicator. He doesn't get things done, and most people's instinctual reaction to anything he says or does is like, ooh. Whereas if we had another 4 years of Obama, he would be much more effective because he's a good salesman for the Democrat Party.
Gotcha. Okay, I can't disagree with that.
People were very
Biden is
enamored by the Obamas too. Both President Obama and Michelle Obama. They were very.
I think it was Michael.
They were. It was just like a kind of like a pop culture thing too. Like
yeah, well, they were more spunky than a normal thing. That's what I think. They were more younger looking.
It was like everything Michelle Obama wore was amazing, and you know, like
she was on Oprah and she was on.
It was
Martha
almost like a Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Yeah, she
type,
was with Snoop Dogg doing a rap song.
thing.
I know what you mean.
I love when
kept up with the pop culture.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I love when they try to do that now with old Dr. Jill.
Oh my God!
And it just falls flat. Like
anyway,
it's like,
talking about old people. Did you see Martha Stewart's on the cover? Or
I did.
swimsuit?
She looks good for 81. I hope I look like that at 81.
I'll be popping Viagra. He looked that good. Oh, good Lord.
Oh God. I'll need some Martha
Go to
Stewart.
commercial.
I agree with Jeff. You know, Obama did more to hurt the country personally, and now his people are running.
Sure.
Look, you know,
I
here's the thing, man. You know, the reality is whether you feel that way about him or not, is that Obama is a very likable guy. I mean, he is
I was younger then too.
He's a very charismatic, likable.
You were more
dude.
accepting.
Yeah, I was only like 16 then. So
Yeah, you were,
how old are you, Gary? How old were you?
I was 28 when he was elected.
When was that?
Were
What
we
year was
really
that?
that young?
Yeah,
Has it really been that long?
It was
Jesus
2008. Oh yeah, I was really young.
Oh man.
Yep.
How old were you in 2008?
Whoever that Co-201 says,
Said
Chris needs to stop drinking during the show.
Chris doesn't
he's-
want to talk
he's
about
not-
that.
He's not getting smarter as we
I
go
was 8.
along.
Yeah, I was 8. No, I was older than 18. I was almost 20.
Really? You're a baby.
Well, look,
Thank you.
I think at the end of the day, especially when you're young, you know, there's a lot of the leftist politics that are
More appealing.
appealing, right? So you know,
you find your way.
They're
You aren't jaded yet. You still believe in the ideals of we can make the world a better place if we just do these things. And
Yeah, then
Well-
you hit the real world and you go.
yeah.
well, it's not even that
I'm
you hit the
screwed.
real world,
Oh, you do hit the
but
real
you
world.
realize that they're
You hit
full of
it early.
shit.
That stuff doesn't
Well,
work.
you
in
hit that early
practice.
with going into the military.
What's that?
You found out that early going in the military, I think.
Yeah.
Like it hit you in the face
Well,
quicker
you know,
than normal people.
Well, you know where it hit me was the
I think
2000
so.
election. So I didn't know anything about politics, didn't give a shit about politics. My family wasn't a political family at all. None of that. But for whatever reason, when the election between Bush and Gore, right? So that was where I became interested in politics, and I didn't know anything about. I didn't really know what a Republican was or Democrat was, but I knew that I did not like Gore, and I just knew that it was really an instinctual thing. Like I just didn't like him, and then I started learning about the politics, and that was when I started listening to Rush Limbaugh and became completely indoctrinated. I was like 20 years old. I wanted to know about politics. The only person I knew that spoke about politics, and everything that Rush said really resonated with me. So
I don't even think I voted in the 2000 election.
I wasn't old enough to vote.
I voted three
I was-
times that year.
I was away at college.
I
I'm
was in-
sure I didn't.
I was in 10th
vote
grade.
'cause my registration was at home.
10th or 11th grade then.
I was registered in 3 different states
Registered for what?
for voting.
Oh.
I didn't. I voted once. Dear God. I'll have like some special agent at my door tomorrow, Mr. Melton. We
Yeah,
heard
from
you
the-
admitted
From the
you
FBI.
admitted that you
FBI.
committed.
Chris wrote it on a napkin. We seen it.
No, I synced it.
Get Papadopoulos
said
over here.
You said it, and it was
And
confirmed.
Papadopoulos read
We
it.
actually we confirmed it when we replayed the same video. That was how we confirmed that intelligence.
Yeah.
Matt says Viagra's like alcohol. You don't need it to have a good time, but sometimes it improves the experience. Also, fun fact, it does work for women as well. I wonder if it works for Mike Obama.
Just stop
I told you, Gary. You're on that bandwagon.
Clinton was a
Hop
very
on the train, brother.
Clinton was a very absolutely Jeff. That's a good break point too.
Yeah,
Clinton was a very likable guy.
So you realize how
I
many,
know
how many women
the
he sexually
interns
assaulted.
in White House liked him a lot. That whole thing got messy though. He's governor. You know, that's a funny thing that you bring that up, Jeff. I remember being in church as a young kid, and I think it was after his re-election. But our pastor, by the way, UPC, so Pentecostal pastor, very strict guy. He's like, you know what? This guy in the White House isn't. So he had met him several years earlier, I think, when he was still governor of Arkansas. He was like, that guy is not the same guy that's in the White House, but you meet that guy in person, he is the most likable guy you'll ever meet. And anyways, the ladies like him too.
Just a normal dude.
Oh well, even the ladies that didn't like him, he freaking didn't let that stop him.
He had
Apparently,
power.
Yep. Well, folks,
He had that Oval Office going on.
we have talked our ears off. My voice is literally.
I wonder what Clinton's son would say about all that.
Clinton.
Sorry, we're going down a rabbit hole.
What's crazy is that guy looks just like him.
If you don't know what we're talking about, Google it. Just Google it.
Yeah, look up Clinton's
Michael
illegitimate son.
Obama.
The other thing that we're talking about that
You
is
at first you were like, what? And then I showed you the pictures and you were like, oh my God.
yeah, no, that's definitely him. I'm not sure
What
if
do you just Google? Clinton's illegitimate
You don't know about
son?
this?
No, I didn't see
You
it.
haven't
Okay.
seen that?
Anyway,
Pull
we'll
it up,
talk.
Gary.
We'll talk offline.
Let me see. I'll pull it up right. Here's another. Since we're on the subject, we talk
I haven't
about
seen this yet.
Hillary's or Chelsea's
Real
father.
dad. She looks just like him.
Oh,
Really?
my
Yeah,
God.
you got to Google that too.
Chelsea Clinton's real father.
Let's get the googs going here, Gary.
Don't share the
I
screen,
mean-
Tyler. Don't share the
No,
screen.
we're definitely sharing the
No.
screen.
It's Google. I mean, you
talking
can
about?
see what you mean.
We're
When he gets to it.
why would we pull this
Oh,
up?
don't go to
without-
that one.
Yeah, I gotta find this guy. Let's see
I
if I can
forget
pull
what
this
his
up.
name is.
I don't know, but man, that
So
guy.
Of course.
Chelsea's real dad, because she never looked anything like either one.
Oh,
of them.
yeah.
Oh, that's her dad.
Right?
Pull that up.
Pull it up.
Tyler.
Show it. That's her dad.
Oh,
make
God.
it
No,
make it
go
go
back.
full screen, Gary.
This guy right here.
Can you click on it and zoom in?
It's not letting me.
Ah, that's her dad.
That is definitely her dad.
Man,
Who's that guy? What's his name?
I don't know.
email yourself.
God, the people that jumped off early, they missed the good part.
They missed the great part at the end. You're gonna have to change the tab and say, make sure you watch the last 20-30 minutes.
That's right.
Oh my God, it's already 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Jeez.
Now Bitdefender's trying to stop me. Shut up. Shut up, stupid. Look,
That's definitely her dad.
that is her dad right
Oh yeah.
there.
Uh-huh. So who was he, by the way?
So he
That's-
was like one of their attorneys or something
Yeah,
like that.
like an advisor or something
Yep, he
like
looks
that.
pumped about it.
Look at that.
It's the same like lips, nose, jaw.
He was like,
She doesn't look anything like
Chin.
him. We might as well look up
Bill Clinton's
Bill Clinton's son. If you guys haven't seen this,
this is
great.
interesting.
And Bill Clinton won't take a DNA test. And this kid's grown. He doesn't.
You don't have
You're
to
right,
take
Craig
a,
Smith.
He stated that he
you
doesn't
don't
want
have
anything
to take
from
a
him.
look at this guy. Look at that guy. That is
look.
Bill Clinton's
Look at
son.
the childhood pictures. Look at the like teenage pictures.
Yeah, look at that.
that one.
That is him right
That
there.
doesn't look as good as the other one.
Are you kidding me?
Nah.
That looks more like
Nah.
the Chelsea.
They
Clinton
just
one.
all they have is the same nose.
No.
They don't have the same
Same
He has
lips.
the same
teeth,
eyes.
Same teeth, same eyes.
No, Clinton's a little puffier. See, I'm not.
Oh, you're crazy.
Not as okay. Who's the mom then of that one?
Some woman,
Definitely not Hillary.
some woman he pulled into the bushes apparently.
Well, you know what? In
From
the
the
rose
story I
bushes,
read.
magical things can happen.
I don't know.
Dodge the thorns.
You can Google that story.
That guy looks just like him.
It's all hearsay, Chris, but
It's all hearsay, written on a napkin.
Yeah.
But the FBI will look.
We
into
should have
it.
definitely done a
Look
tinfoil
into it.
hat alert. There should have been a disclaimer on this.
I should have pulled one up and just put it on. That'd have been awesome. We have to remember that. Have that prop ready.
Have the handy tinfoil hat.
Jeff Hahn, that's Webster Hubble. That's Chelsea Clinton's real father right
Webster Hubble.
Yep.
I guess he
Craig
invented the
Smith said-
telescope.
Speaking of Clinton, Epstein didn't kill himself.
Oh,
Epstein did
you
not
right,
He
kill
was
Greg.
himself.
suicided.
He got, yeah.
Suicided.
Yep.
But he was under surveillance, so he couldn't have. So
He was. All right, folks.
FBI must have been
Anyway.
surveilling him.
Well, tonight was full of shenanigans, even without Jason.
Evil shenanigans.
We didn't get any sound effects. Hey, where's our sound effects over there?
Yeah.
What do we got going on? What, we got a sound effect? Oh, never mind.
I just heard a toilet flush.
You take
Was
it
that
too
it?
long. No, that was actually our toilet flushing upstairs, I think.
Hey,
I swear I heard a
Jeff
toilet
says
flush.
let's do birth certificates next week. I'm down with that. We can take a look at that.
I'll pull my. Oh,
We
my
might as well go down
IDs on
the
side by
conspiracy
side.
theory rabbit hole. Why not?
That would be a good one.
Would
Each of us come with a
Good night,
conspiracy
Jason.
theory.
We'll see you later, man.
Oh
All
man.
right, folks. Well, listen, we appreciate you guys showing up. I know it was a lot of reading. I'm sorry.
a lot of highlighter.
A lot of highlighters. There was a lot of highlighted areas.
That
The
must be-
highlighter.
That's why I had to purchase 100 from Amazon today.
That's right. All right, folks. Look, we always appreciate you showing up. Thanks for showing up. So what you need to do, Tyler, is you got to play the outro. Okay, you good? All right, folks. Until next time. Until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll see you guys next weekend. Now you got to hit in broadcast there. There you go.